Roguelites are a dime a dozen today in the video game industry. The independent game scene has taken the genre and run with it. Games like Hades have taken the world by storm with a formula that gives it an impressive building story with memorable characters and weapon builds, while something like Balatro has taken the game of poker and turned it into a roguelite itself. But what does it look like when a AAA video game studio makes this style of game? Maybe it'll have some of the coolest fucking combat in a game. Hello, and welcome to the Next Gen. Today, I'll be reviewing Saros. This review was written and edited by Sean Mardrum, and the game was played on the base PlayStation 5. Saros is Housemarque's follow-up to 2021's Returnal. Returnal featured similar third-person frenetic combat that Housemarque calls bullet ballet. Returnal was all about dodging the waves of bullets being thrown at the player, while you try to unpack the strange nature of your main character's journey. And Saros is no different. You play as a Soltari enforcer known as Arjun Devraj, battling his way through the alien planet known as Carcosa, and battle you do. This game does have some problems, but at its core, this game is about the combat. And for video game combat, it really doesn't get much better than this. When the game starts, the player is presented with a boot-up sequence revealing a mission to retrieve a valuable mineral known as leucine on the planet Carcosa. The pioneers and settlers of this mission were sent in waves, with each group being designated a different echelon. Echelon 4, the last echelon, was sent with a group of soldiers, after all previous echelons never sent word back after arriving on Carcosa. Arjun performed excellently by actor Rahul Kohli is part of this echelon, but he's also on Carcosa for other reasons that delve further into the game's central themes and narrative. You also learn that Carcosa is starting to break the minds of the people who inhabit it, as they start talking in cryptic messages and start losing their sanity. Similar to Returnal, there is also an underlying story being told outside of the strange alien planet. Saros leaves its themes hidden in audio logs, confusing cutscenes, and cryptic dialogue. It's not often that a game has me reading text entries or enemy logs, but the story and world were so intriguing that I was excited when I killed a new enemy for the first time just to learn more about the backstory of this strange planet. If there's one parallel to Saros' world and story, it would be that of Ridley Scott's Alien. The company that sent echelons to Carcosa is called Soltari, which claims to have the best interest of its employees at heart, but is also very shady with its tactics. It's very Weyland-Yutani, and Carcosa itself also has some architecture that screams Ridley Scott Alien. Soltari also has artificial intelligence in the form of Primary, a menacing computer unit overseeing Carcosan operations. I say this as a compliment. The story itself doesn't feel familiar, but the set dressing was very fun as someone who is a huge fan of the Alien aesthetic. Speaking of Carcosa itself, the game has stunning environment design. The alien architecture looks sleek and decrepit, with cathedral hallways of beautiful design and abandoned tunnels laced with sparking wires. At first, I thought the world didn't have distinct enough biomes, but I grew to appreciate the consistent world design that Housemarque had in mind. Most planets wouldn't have such distinct visual environments if you were only exploring a small portion of them. The enemies themselves don't look like aliens or robots that I've seen that often in the science fiction genre, but I did struggle to differentiate them in tight action moments. A lot of the enemies look similar to each other. They've got that tentacle priest thing going on, which led to some frustration when I was looking for attack patterns or knowing when to use my limited moves on enemies with larger health bars. This only tends to happen when the screen is littered with dozens of them, but that's also pretty common as well. So now let's talk about the gameplay. The game is a roguelite, where dying causes you to lose your progress of a run, while keeping a few resources you gathered to make your character stronger and get further on your next run. The player builds out this large skill tree where they can improve Arjun's abilities and modifications for future runs. You are constantly upgrading your strength after each run, and even though I would say these perks are never game-changing, they are always useful no matter what. So, when you're on a run, it's a mix of combat rooms, searching for upgrades, and platforming. The combat rooms often lock you in a scenario with waves of incoming enemies, until you kill them or they kill you. They had some varied designs, but the numerous enemies you encountered in a room kept them feeling fresh. Upgrades are scattered throughout Carcosa, whether in plain sight, before new locales, or along hidden paths. These hidden paths were sometimes frustrating when they were inaccessible either from an item you didn't have yet, or from searching for a button to a door that seems annoyingly well hidden. These sections can kill the pacing of the game, and are a little more tedious to find than I would like, but they also feature some of the game's platforming as well. I say platforming very loosely, as it's more about dodging lasers and bullets in the environment, with the occasional section of floating platforms or jump pads to use. These sections feel like the better palate cleanser in between the high-octane battles of Bullet Ballet. I keep saying this term, Bullet Ballet, but what does it actually mean? Well, it means dodging the constant waves of bullets being thrown at you. Whether you are dashing, running, or jumping, there is a constant thrill and stress from what is happening on screen. You can also shield, which absorbs any blue bullets that strike your shield, which fills a meter for your power weapon. Then later you can parry red bullets, which send them back in the direction you're facing with proper timing, but you can't actually dodge through them. Then yellow bullets take away your maximum health temporarily. So not only are you dodging these attacks, but you're also thinking about the best way to use them to your advantage. It seems overwhelming, but after enough practice, you get into this beautiful rhythm of understanding enemy attack patterns and the best ways to move around your environment. While you're doing this, you're also using your base weapon, your power weapon, melee attacks, and traversal options. It's not just about dodging, it's about murdering the hordes of enemies that think they can stop you. By the end of the game, your moveset as Arjun is so complex and strong, and your skills are so much more well-tuned to what the game demands of you, that you'll feel like the best gamer you've ever been. This complexity does lead to some frustration with the game's other systems. There are 3 main sections of upgrades for your character: Power, Drive, and Resilience. Drive raises Lucenite proficiency, which allows your weapons to have better proficiency levels, which allows them to have increased maximum stats. But Drive can also become volatile if you collect too much, which leads to negative effects and corruption. Corruption can be used, however, to make corrupted weapons more powerful, but they mean that your health bar is lower, but your health bar can also be raised again by unleashing your corruption in your power weapon, which is charged up by collecting energy from your shield. I think you hear the problem. All these systems work well together, but when you're in the heat of combat, you don't really think about them. It's just too much overcomplication. I never felt like I would win a fight or lose a battle because I wasn't using these options to my fullest potential. I either took damage because I messed up, or beat the enemy because my bullet ballet and weapon were playing to their best. Maybe if you really push the game to its hardest moments, I would care more about these systems, but I doubt even that. Even going through the tutorials writing this review, there are systems I didn't even know existed. I didn't know you could use an item called an Acolyte's Wager to remove one of your current artifacts. I thought it was just to re-roll unpicked up items. I think the game has a few too many systems under its belt, especially when its core mechanics are strong enough to carry the game. This wealth of options and systems doesn't contribute to giving the player more variety or more options if they're struggling, because they never feel different enough from the core shooting and dodging. The game does provide players with support if they are struggling with a system called Carcosan modifiers. It's a menu before each run where you can add benefits and perks to make your run easier, while also adding in negative effects that will balance the game's difficulty. For such an integral part of the game and its marketing, I never found myself using it. I like the standard difficulty the game was presenting me with, but I do look forward to adding some negative effects in runs after having beaten the game. I talked about the unnecessary complexity of the game, but where its complexity does shine is its weapons. These weapons are so unique and fun to use that they really are the star of the whole game. Something the game makes great use of is the adaptive triggers of the DualSense controller, where half pressing the left trigger switches to an alt fire, which changes or amplifies the way your gun currently fires. There are 5 different sets of weapons, each with 3 different variants. For example, the hand cannon. Your standard pistol comes in 3 variants. The Eruptor hand cannon has a 3-shot burst, which already feels amazing, but the alt fire causes all of the bullets to be loaded into the chamber at once for one deadly satisfying burst. Then there's the marksman hand cannon, which removes the game's great auto aim. It uses its alternate fire to charge one powerful shot, which then marks a target, allowing them to be auto aimed. Crossbow bolts break off and home in on nearby targets, while others fire one powerful bolt that sends its homing bolts on just that one target. The shotgun weapons shoot homing blades that can stay in their targets or swirl around Arjun if you run around enemies. Out of the 15 weapons, there was maybe only one or two that I would opt to not pick if my weapon wasn't drastically weaker. They are always fun to use. I do wish, however, that the shotguns were more effective, especially since they're the most satisfying weapons in the game. The shotgun in Returnal, the Split Mob Blaster, is one of the best feeling weapons I've ever played in the game. These shotguns feel the same, but the enemies in this game compared to Returnal are much more agile and often further from the player, so it's much harder to get up in an enemy's face and blast them for massive damage. This is especially true for some of the boss fights, where it's almost necessary to bring any other kind of weapon. Speaking of boss fights, this game absolutely delivers. Boss fights were one of my disappointments with Returnal. It has one standout boss fight right in the middle of the game, and it never reaches close to that level of spectacle again. Saros is not like that in the slightest. The first boss fight is so strong, with such an interesting attack pattern for a stationary boss. Then some of the later game fights feature that spectacle that I was after, in some really impressive ways. Some of them do suffer from the visual identity issue that the enemies suffer from as well, but their fights are still memorable and unique enough to stand out. The variety is nice as well, because for my play sessions they were always the roadblocks of the game. It was pretty rare I would die on a run in the normal battle arenas the game throws at me. I often found myself dying to the bosses, learning their patterns and movesets to get to the next biome. I enjoyed them as these roadblocks as well, knowing that after I defeated them, I had story progression to look forward to. The final bit of gameplay worth mentioning is the Eclipse. This is a system in the game where you activate a terminal to start an eclipse. This causes the environment to warp and distort and send enemies into a frenzied state. Their attacks contain more corrupted bullets, whilst artifacts now have corrupted effects that put negative effects on your current run, from taking fall damage to having your weapon jam when you get hit. This is a system from Returnal that I'm so happy Housemarque carried over. I love the in-the-moment push and pull of saying, well, I'd really love a stronger melee strike, but I also don't want my health pickups to be less useful when I'm already so low on health. I prefer this system to the Carcosan modifiers, because I like deciding in the moment on a run, rather than setting myself up for perks and debuff without knowing what I might need. This Eclipse is also what leads to the story's progression. Without spoiling too much, it seems to be connected to the way characters start to act crazy on Carcosa. I love this aspect of the story, almost a zombie apocalypse or mind control plot, but I did find myself frustrated when I found an audio log or text file, and it was nonsense like,
"It was meant to be. The invitation to the shore. I will blaze."
It's possible that now knowing the broader strokes of the story and finding more files and logs will be more interesting or comprehensible, but when half the game is writing like this, it can be a little tiresome. One thing Housemarque understands better than most developers is how to use the PlayStation 5 to its fullest. To me, the best thing about the PS5 is its haptic feedback and adaptive triggers on its controller. Saros takes full advantage of this, as deep, menacing alien speech shakes your controller, while the explosions from your power weapon explode in the palm of your actual hands. The adaptive triggers allow for your gun's alt-fire mode as well, and it really sells how different each weapon feels. The sound design of this game is also just phenomenal, from the way its menus scroll, for the boot-up sequence of Primary. It's hard to explain, but everything sounds so alien and satisfying. It may be the best sound design I have ever heard in a video game. While so much of the game is amazing, it does have a few other drawbacks. The game runs near flawlessly, besides one run where my frame rate kept dipping below 60 fairly often. The in-game cutscenes and dialogue are pretty stilted, unfortunately, and there are some moments of weird pop-in or a bad camera angle. Sometimes the characters would have that soulless look, while the voice actors give off these great performances. It's more frustrating because the pre-rendered cutscenes are so well animated and performed. These scenes are usually in the hub of the game called the Passage. It's fine as a hub, and has some interesting characters to talk to, but it's nowhere near as detailed as enjoyable as other roguelite hubs. I also found the game a little too easy. By no means is this game a cakewalk. Enemies hit for loads of damage, and health pickups aren't the most common thing to find in the world. Bullets and enemies are also plentiful on screen as well, and some debuffs you can collect, like a cooldown on your dash, can make runs very challenging. However, if you use all the tools in your toolkit, you can mow down enemies with ease. Some weapons felt so overpowered that I would actively choose to not take them into a boss battle, just so I wouldn't melt its health bar immediately. Then, if you go out of your way on side paths looking for extra collectibles, you can upgrade your power weapon to almost never have a cooldown. The worst part about these difficulty issues is that the game's bosses are always at the end of a run, so you reach them when you're at your strongest. Some bosses, even in the late game, I beat on my first or second attempt, and that's a little disappointing for this type of game. Action roguelites are often built on slow progression and learning attack patterns. I also didn't love the game's parry mechanic. Its timing would sometimes feel a little too tight, and since enemies hit for so much damage, it didn't feel worth the risk anytime I saw red bullets flying my way. Depth perception on some of those attacks would also cause me to parry an attack that was still on its way, or press the button and miss the red bullets entirely. Then some buttons are reused for multiple mechanics, which led to some frustration. Your dash and sprint are both locked to L1, and your shield and parry locked to R1. Then sometimes in the heat of battle I would use my power weapon instead of my alt fire, as both are used by L2. After beating the main campaign after around 17 hours, I still do have the desire to go back and discover more of Saros' secrets. The moment-to-moment combat is so engaging and fun that it's hard not to have a smile on my face after wiping out a stressful room, even after all these hours. I think Saros is worth playing.